and welcome to episode 90 of the Gaslec podcast. In this week's episode, we have a funny story from last week. Well, funny for me at least. We have some listeners' questions that we're going to be answering, and we have some tips for those already in the game. This and some more in this week's episode. But first of all, here's my friend Sean to tell you a bit more about the podcast. Are you a new person coming into plumbing and heating? Are you a homeowner that likes a bit of DIY? Or are you a business owner and wanted a bit more knowledge before you make some decisions on your plumbing and heating? Stay tuned to the podcast and hopefully we'll be able to help you out with some of your questions. And welcome back. So first of all, is some like DIY questions. So we have some people that email us in some questions. Here goes. So one of the emails we had in. So why does my hot water temperature fluctuate so much? So we need to think about where we're measuring this from. We have got no more context than that question, unfortunately. So are you measuring it from, forgetting your hot water system, are you measuring it from something that has an automatic thermostat that will be mixing the temperature for you, like a shower valve, which are very common? Some of these shower valves can be incorporated into some bath taps, but they're not that common here in the UK. But do you have a shower valve that's causing this temperature fluctuation? When you go to your kitchen sink or to your basin, or if you've got a bath, do you still have it there? Is that still the issue? So the only place that's happening is the shower, will be the shower itself. Now, if you have a installation, you may have thermostatic mixing valves, like temperature mixing valves or blending valves as we call them, and you may get those under a bath, certainly in new builds, to comply with water regulations. So these fluctuate the temperature of the hot water and regulate it. So there's maximum requirements for temperatures for bathing. And this is to stop anyone getting into a bath that is too hot. So if you've got an unvented water cylinder, you could have water with the safety valves in place and working, you could have water nearly up to 90 degrees without them activating. And if you have that sort of temperature water, if you was to climb in, there's certainly, if you had some challenges or you're slightly older, you may not realise the temperature of the water you fall in, and then unfortunately you'll meet your demise. So there's lots of rules on bathing temperatures, and certainly within new builds as well, you'll see those TMVs being fitted. So putting that aside, if you was to have like a hot water cylinder and you're having fluctuating temperatures, generally what will happen is the water will get cooler and cooler and cooler if you're running out of stored water, whether it be a tank in the loft feeding a vented system or an unvented system. So when you say the fluctuating side, does it mean it's just getting worse and worse? The longer you have a shower or the longer you run the hot water tap, it's just getting cooler and cooler. Now, the majority of these questions actually come from combination boilers. So combination boilers actually heat the water as it's being demanded. So the boiler goes into a high rate and it goes into maximum. So straight off the bat, you hear the fan fire up, spin, because the fan sucks the gas through the venturi and pulls it out of the gas valve. And then as it does that, more gas, which then has a bigger flame, more energy that's going into the heat exchanger. So when this happens, it all depends if you've got a display on your boiler, but as you see that, then you'll see the temperature start to rise. Now, the temperature on any combi boiler isn't necessarily the water temperature, it's the flow temperature coming out of the boiler. And this usually doesn't exceed 60-ish degrees, 70 degrees, that sort of number. And it goes round. And if you're just running the kitchen tap and it's not that fast, you'll hear the boiler fire up, then you'll hear the fan modulate down in its normal operation, and it just goes into a tick over because it realizes that's what you want, that's the flow rate of the hot water that you're demanding, and this is the maximum temperature that I can demand it at, because it's measuring the flow and the return temperature going into the heat exchanger. It'll modulate down to try and keep that nice and even balance for you. So if we've got an issue where temperatures are starting to fluctuate. Now what can happen is the boiler overheats, so it'll get into a very hot state, and then it'll turn itself off to protect itself, and then it'll fire back up as soon as it cools down, and that generally is our fluctuation in our hot water. So with that said, what can cause the fluctuation? The most common thing is a dirty heating system. And that dirty heating system will go round, and those bits of the black stuff that you've seen probably into your heat and hot water systems, your heating system, called the magnetite. So that's come from basically the radiators that are still in your property, rusting from the inside. And they start corroding, and the water goes as black as you're at, or as black as this desk. And then we start getting little chunks coming out, so little flakes of rust that are now flying around your heating system. So what they'll do is they'll get to the weakest part, and they'll start blocking up the smallest of waterways. So one place it can, which is the most common place, is your plate-to-plate heat exchanger. Now, in some cases, these can be removed from the boiler, and they can be cleaned. But we're looking, sometimes they could be thick end of 10 inches long. They're quite long on the Worcesters, a bit shorter on the other boilers. And these have fine, tiny little waterways that have been pressed in. And they're not little rectangles. They're almost like an eye drop shape, but very small. So they have very small waterways. So they're almost perfect for collecting bits of debris. And they get wedged in there, and they build up, and they block this little waterway, and then it tries to go another way, and that eventually gets blocked. So it goes the other way, and that eventually gets blocked. And all these designed waterways for the heating, for the boiler water to pass through, to heat up indirectly the cold water coming in, starts getting restricted, and that means the water coming back to the heat exchanger is now being slowed down, which means the boiler fires up into high rate, and then it can't manage, it's not getting rid of its heat. So methane gas will burn at around 1500 degrees. So that inside the heat exchanger, it wants to get to 1,500 degrees. Obviously, there are safety devices to stop this from happening, but that's basically what it's trying to do. So very, very quickly, if your boiler is going to cut out at 100 degrees when it starts to boil, that's not a lot of tolerance you're playing with, where you look at 60, 70 degrees flow temperature is normal, 100 is cut out, and it wants to get to 1,500 by the flame, then we're not dealing with a lot. So as soon as it comes in, it just cuts itself off, because it doesn't want to rocket past and actually start catastrophically failing the heat exchanger and damaging it. So that's the most common place, the plate-to-plate heat exchanger. Probably the most next common place is going to be the diverter valve. So in a Worcester, it's like a paddle. And basically it's on the return side, and it will shut off the return flow, so it allows the water to come across the top and go through the heat exchanger. And when you demand heating, it goes up and it blocks out the plate, and then it allows the heating to flow. Some other boilers, like your Baxis and stuff, they're on the flow side, not on the return side. But they'll work on a similar principle, shutting water off and allow it to flow one way, and shutting it off the other and allow it to flow the other. So if these are, once again, dirty through poor water quality, these won't seal properly. So when we try and demand the heating or hot water, we can start getting creepage coming round. So we get calls in the summer of, I've got my hot water and I've got a radiator that's getting hot and it's 30 degrees outside. And that is the diverter creeping past. Now, if you've got a gravity system with the 2 ports and your 3 ports, you may experience something very similar as well, because it's exactly the same. It's just a smaller version inside a combi boiler. But that's the typical signs of where you're failing on your hot water temperature fluctuation. So hopefully that helps you navigate that question there. So why do boilers fail in the winter? Well, as we've explained on another podcast, in the winter, boilers are working up to 40% harder than they normally would. So typically in the summer, you're demanding a bit of hot water. Maybe we're getting a chilly evening in the spring and the autumn time. It'll just come on a little bit just to take the edge off. And it just ticks over quite nicely. All of a sudden we have this cold snap. And I think we're actually down here in Kent, I think we're actually forecast for a little bit of snow this weekend. So we start getting temperatures plummet to just below freezing and stuff. They're working really, really hard. And certainly at my house at Gaslec Towers, Mark 1, when I used to work from home, my heating's very rarely off, be honest with you. So my boiler really has get a bit of a kick in the winter. So that's why they fail, is because we're really pushing them quite hard. And then that's when they start to break down. So I've got a little tip for you DIYers out there and your homeowners. So what do you do before you call a heating engineer to save money? Basically, money is time for us, guys. So we want to get around and help as many clients as we can within the day, within the week, and to get as many people up and running as we can. So if you can do as much as you can as a homeowner to help us, that can then really sort of cut down on all the labour times that we spend with you. So one of the things, that we do here at Gaslec, we ask for pictures. So we get a description from you guys of what's the problem. I've got no heating. Okay. Or there's a whistling noise or a banging noise. Okay. When does it happen? It happens after I turn the heating off, then we get a banging noise. Okay. So we can start to build a bit of a picture of what this can be. And so here at Gaslec, we've got 4 gas engineers on our company here. So we then start looking around of, what could this be, do you think? Is it one of these? Is it one of these? And we've got, group texts that go on WhatsApp. And then so we can go along with a bit of an idea, and we can go along with maybe a part if it's quite a common thing to go wrong. And sometimes we'll ask when you've got a leak from the boiler, can you take a picture of the leak and where the drips are coming from? And that will then give us an idea. Maybe you don't need a heating engineer, maybe you just need a plumber. And we've got a few plumbers here on the business as well. So we can send out the right person, and we can send hopefully the right person out with the right stock to start with, so we can get it without having to go off for bits and pieces and then come back again. We can try and get it fixed first time, right there and then. So that's really how you can sort of make some savings yourself as homeowners and make it as quickly as possible. We have another question here. Why turning your heating up higher works faster? Don't quite understand that. So, but I see it all the time. So when you go into someone's house, my heating doesn't work, and you look at the thermostat, and someone's tried to get it at 35 degrees, the room temperature. Well, if we've got a room temperature of, let's say, 15 degrees, and it's a bit chilly, and you want it to heat up, if you put it to 20 and you hear the if you've got a manual thermostat, you hear it click, that's it. It's just a switch. Going from 20 and it doesn't work at 20, it's not going to work at 21. It's not going to work at 22. It's not going to work at 23. It's just a switch. It's like a light switch. So if you just imagine turning your lights on, and you think, oh, actually, can I get a different light switch to make these brighter? That doesn't happen. It's exactly the same with your heating. Now, a lot of modulating boilers, modern boilers, they'll actually come on at a low rate and build themselves up because they don't want to go flying into a heating demand too fast, too quickly, because it doesn't know if the pump's working right, what radiators are open, and it just wants to bring things in nice and slowly to protect all the components and give it some extra longevity as well. So when you go along and you've got no heating at 20 degrees, it ain't going to make a difference if you put the thermostat up to 30. So what to look out for early signs that something is wrong? So if you've got a sealed heating system and you're having to top up that water pressure and it's getting more regularly, you've noticed that your house used to heat up in about half an hour, 45 minutes, and now it's taken an hour to hour and a half. You're getting strange noises when you turn the boiler on and it starts to make some funny rattles or squeaks or a bit of a banging noise. Or you're having to push the reset on the boiler to reset it, to get it back up and running again. And that's getting more and more often. That's your early warning signs that something is starting to go wrong with either your boiler or your heating system. And be proactive. Call up your local heating professional that services your boiler regularly, hopefully, and then comes out and then can check the system before it fails. And that is often the cheapest way to deal with stuff. Be proactive rather than reactive. The next section is, I've nicknamed it In the Game. So you're already just into plumbing and heating, you're just qualified into your gas side of things, and you're sort of running your own thing. Maybe you've gone out on your own, maybe you're working for somebody else. But what's the biggest bit of advice I'll give to you guys out there? Now, we don't have a big business here at Gaslec. We're just under 10 employees, got 5 vans out on the road. What I would say is get a CRM system straight away. So the customer relationship management system. So it's where we can bring in all of your job sheets, all of your photos, all of your notes on the system. It'll deal with your quotes, it'll deal with your invoicing, it'll link into your digital, your Xero or your QuickBooks. It'll link in with all of those. And it's something that I wish I did right at the beginning rather than using paper records and a paper diary. It really does streamline your efficiency of what you're doing in your business. So we had, my first one was Gas Engineer software in its early days. And I thought that was actually a really good system as a one-man band, as a quite a small business. You know, when there was just the one of us, then there was just the two of us. That really did help bring things together. I could then go and have a look at a gas cert from 6 months ago on my mobile phone and go through all the details. What boiler do you have? What's the GC number? What are the notes that I made at the time? It's a really straightforward. Or if you've got someone that's now working as your admin person and they need to look up any details, they can do that as well without trawling through bits of carbonated paper. So I can't stress that really strong enough about having a CRM. We had a call out on Sunday afternoon to a care home, and it was in their commercial kitchen, and it was a fan control box that was faulty. And I tried to get as much details as I could from the client of what was going on, and I actually even had to abandon the father-in-law's 80th birthday lunch to get off, because I thought it might be a fuse spur that was playing up to go and get one from Screwfix before it shut to get up there in the afternoon. So so we don't really work weekends at Gaslec unless it's sort of pre-arranged, but we sort of do go out. I personally do go out my way for our commercial clients and for our vulnerable ones as well, where I can. So I've got a question for you guys out there already in the trade. So you fit a boiler 18 months ago and you get a call. So it's been in, you offer 12-month warranty on your plumbing works up to the boiler, and it's over that, and they've had a boiler service. At what point, and the boiler's under manufacturer's warranty, the actual boiler itself, and you get a phone call from the customer, at what point do we then say, get the manufacturer out first, and then we'll come out afterwards if necessary? Because it seems that, you know, all we tend to do is we've got a boiler under warranty. It's out of our warranty from the pipework point of view. It sounds like an internal PRV failed, let's just say, or an expansion that's failed on the boiler itself. But the customer phones us first. At what point do we say, you need to ring Valent, you need to ring Worcester, you need to ring Ideal or Glowworm, whoever it may be? Do you guys do that? Let us know in the comments, or send me an email at podcast@gaslec.net. It's one of those, you know, when you run a business, it's actually quite lonely, really, because sometimes you don't really have that stuff to bounce off each other. You have people that you bump into in the merchants and stuff, but ultimately we sort of out there quite on our own. Even when you've got a team around you, you know, I talk to them, certainly Anne and Kelly in the office, I'll speak to them about, you know, what should we do? What should we look at? And sort of they're just taking their own personal opinions on it. But guys, what do you think out there? Should we get the manufacturer out first? So last week I was being trolled by another gas engineer, and funny enough, I know him as well. He was shooting me down on social media, and I'm going to take that as flattery. So I just think that potentially he's a little bit envious of what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we've achieved here at Gaslec. So I'm going to take it as a positive and not as a negative. And that's all I'm going to say. So what was we up to last week? Well, I was in Nottingham working away. So we work in the children's care sector, and we do a lot of work for them. So in this sort of area, we're sort of trusted within these environments, and we're all DBS checks, and I'm enhanced DBS as well. So we got called out. So we've done some gas checks up there in December. I've noted down some improvements and some things that weren't quite right. And then I've got 4 jobs over 3 days up into around Nottingham, Lincoln area up the top there. Certainly a bit of a 3.5 hour journey down here from Kent, I tell you. So while I was there, so I had to do some work on the heating system. I looked down, we were sitting at 1 bar of pressure in the little plant room there, and I looked over and I thought, right, okay, I've got to do some work on the hot water. So I knocked off the unvented cylinder so I can get some new expansion vessel, and it was on a flexi pipe, so get a new expansion, 24 litre fitted, and fit it into a bit of hard copper rather than the flexi. And then as I walked into the building, there was a couple of sparks working downstairs. So we had a little bit of banter as I walked through the door, and it was all lovely. And then goes up, and then the main guy goes off to get something, like screw fix or somewhere. And then this lad comes up. He looked about 11, and he was white as a sheet. His bottom lip was hanging out, and he was like, I drilled a hole and now there's water coming out of it. And I looked around as cool as cucumber at the pressure gauge on the heating system, and I went, that's sitting at 0. I said, you've just drilled through a heating pipe, because I haven't touched it. So Wanda's down there and he's in absolute panic. This lad looks like he's about to either burst into tears or faint, or both at the same time. So part of the I don't know, as a grown up, as a parent, as a business owner, I'm not quite sure, as a mentor, I was like, right, okay, right, banter will wait till later on. So what we need to do is expose this bit of pipe here. The water's stopped. There's no more pressure into it. It's a sealed system. It's going to seal itself up. You drill through, take the cabinet down and expose. You got the multi-tool out and cut it all out. And one drill hole went straight through it, and then the other drill hole just nicked the pipe. So we cut it was only about 10 inches, 12 inches. That's 300 mil of pipe with 2 couplings. And they went and got those and got it sorted for him. But one thing I did say to the lads, and he was getting a bit of stick within his own little organisation from there, I said, just remember, mate, I said, anybody who's been in this game long enough has either hit an electrical cable and hit a water pipe by drilling holes, if they drilled enough of them. And I said, if they're telling you they've never done it, it's their first day, or they're a liar. I said, we've all done it, and we're all still doing it, unfortunately. So all the testers and all the procedures in the world and all the tea in China would never, ever, ever completely eliminate the chances of us doing something along those sort of lines. So don't stress about it. We'll take care of it. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, you're going to get a bit of stick for it, but there we are. So don't worry about it. And if you're listening to this podcast, Solomon, I wish you all the best, mate. And hopefully you learn from it and you grow from it as well, mate. So it's no biggie. All right. So I got called out to a boiler that was fitted 6 months ago for no heating. So we get called out, and it was like, well, it's under Glowworm's. It was a Glowworm LPG boiler. It's under Glowworm's warranty, and so give them a call. But it was actually on a boat. So there was like, about where's the boat, where's the pontoon, how'd you get on access, blah, 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 blah. So the actual marina owner said, whatever it is, if it's not down to a warranty issue, then we'll pay for it. So we went out there, and do you know what the issue was? Someone had taken the batteries out of the wireless programmer. So they were saying, well, maybe the batteries weren't fitted in the wireless programmer. I know the batteries were fitted in there because I fitted in myself, and I set it up the time and the date. It was the Honeywell T3R, and I know exactly what it was, and I know exactly where it was because I set it up with the stand and put it on the side. And all they'd done, for whatever reason, they'd taken out the AA batteries, and now all of a sudden, weirdly enough, the heating don't work. So that unfortunately was a chargeable call for the client. We also got called out for a second opinion for a boiler not working. And this was last Monday. So we got called out to Huntingdon, up that end of the world. And for us, that's what, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes? Gets all the way up there. And another company had gone out there. So to change a combi boiler, standard flue, maybe a 500 extension on that as well, flush a 2-zone heating system on a weekend, 12,000 quid they wanted for this LPG boiler. Absolute rip-off. And I'll say that and I'll stand on that. I've never charged 12 grand for a boiler, which is just a domestic boiler, absolutely trying to pull the wool over these people's eyes. So they paid us to go out there, even with the travel as well. And do you know what the issue was? We had loads of hot water. So on the hot water on the combi side was working. So that's burner, spark electrodes, flame rec, gas valve, fan, pump, all inside the boiler, plate heat exchanger, all working absolutely fine because we could have 10 minutes of hot water and it's nice and consistent. So I was thinking, what is the fundamentals? Because usually if you get a problem, it's on the hot water side, where everything goes at a high rate and all those little problems start to manifest themselves. But the hot water, the heating would only get to about 40 to 42 degrees and then it'll shut itself off. And then it'll pause for a bit, tickle away 40, 42 degrees, and it'll shut itself off again. And the actual issue was a faulty weather compensate. And so it thought the outside weather temperature was 21 degrees and sunny because it was actually fitted on the south side of the building. And the actually building was actually black wooden cladding. So that'll actually soak up the sun's rays as well. So the whole thing was just completely fitted incorrectly. The idea is there, but it was done and executed wrong. It thought it was too hot. The boiler was then saying, why do you need 70 degree flow temperature on your heating system when it's so hot currently at the moment? So if you've not heard of weather compensation, so I'll just quickly explain it to you guys. Now, weather compensation on sort of most modern boilers now, it's a way of linking in a little thermistor, a little outdoor weather sensor. You normally put this on the north side in the shade of a building, and it just monitors the air temperature outside. So it gets an idea, it normally has like a little cover over it. It gets a bit of an idea of that's the temperature outside. So if the temperature outside is 0 degrees and it's freezing, and we're asking for 70 degree flow temperature hot water on the heating system, it'll give you 70 degrees. If it thinks it's 15 degrees outside and we just need to take a bit of an edge off, it may give us, I don't know, maybe a 50 degree flow temperature, because we don't need it absolutely red hot indoors, because the outside temperature is actually quite, it's a bit nippy, but it's not that bad. And then as we then go through, it usually fluctuates from about 40 to 75 degrees weather compensation. So it's a way of saving energy. It's a way of reducing your flow temperature without you touching it. The biggest hurdle with all of this, and probably the reason why most gas engineers are a little bit reluctant to fit them, is the amount of callbacks that you get. So when we install them here, we like to make sure we send an email. And then we explain the system that, on those spring and those autumn days when it feels a bit chilly, but it's actually not too bad out there weather-wise on the air temperature, you won't be able to dry your washing indoors because your flow temperature will be automatically reduced down. And when it reduces down, you'll be touching the radiator going, I've turned the heating on and it's not working properly. And that's the callbacks that we all get here in the industry. So that's why I believe there's a lot of people that are a little bit against the weather comp from that point. If you get someone that's really tech savvy, fantastic. If you get someone that's, I don't know, let's stereotype, that's just retired and they're living in a property, maybe on their own, and that is a recipe for callbacks or after callbacks. So what we got going on next week? So we got a little commercial boiler going in, a little 100 kilowatt Valent. We've got lots of service calls already booked in. Here, I like to leave some spaces in the diary free for call outs that do come in, and especially our service plan clients as well, which take priority over everybody else. So I think we want to book things in. We want to sort of almost not guarantee, but guarantee a full diary for everybody. But we need that capacity to take in those emergency calls that do come in, certainly for our service plan clients. So it's a proper bit of a juggle how we get it on. So we've got a busy week ahead of us. So last thing I just want to say about is this time of year, guys, it's important to check in with some old pals. With the dark mornings and the early evenings, and we don't seem to get too much sunlight, it can really affect us guys and our mental health. So, just a phone call, just a text message to an old pal that you haven't spoke to for a while, just reach out to them and ask them how they're getting on, really does make a difference. And every now and then, I like to do that as well myself. Just ping out a bit of a random message to somebody that you haven't spoke to for a little while. Life does get in the way, and we're all busy, and hopefully everyone's doing well. But it's just make sure, it just puts you puts you in their thoughts for a little while, and just reconnect with them. So this is one of the big reasons in January, our most popular time to book a sunny holiday, with the sunlight being so restricted. We need something to look forward to. And one of the things I always ask the customers, and certainly if I know them, because I'm a bit of a chatbox, is where have you been on holiday and where you're going on holiday? I love my little adventures, my little breaks. And if you follow me on my social media, you'll see that I love my little motorbike adventures. Somewhere into Europe, some far-flung corner, some strange little bar or hovel somewhere, some lovely picturesque view over mountains or over valleys and ravines. So we always like to look forward, certainly as human beings. So we've got some bits and pieces booked up for this year. I'm a bit private prior to it. As if you follow me on social media, you'll see that what I mean on that there. But certainly reach out to some old pals and just see how they're getting on, because this time of year it can be tough for some people. Well, that wraps up this week's episode. Have a fantastic week. All the best. Goodbye.